Be strong.
Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Real Talks with Rish. We're here at the beautiful Ford suburb, just facing, not even Mulligan's flat, but just facing a beautiful picturesque sunset. So today on the podcast, we've got a very close friend of mine, Surojit. He has done many things in life, many great things, always aspiring to be a better human and a better version of himself. And with further introduction, here's Surojit.
Thank you, Rishi. It's always a pleasure to meet you, and then jumping onto one of those episodes, always a great pleasure, to be on my first podcast, I think, ever in my life. So it's going to be an interesting journey for the next hour, 1 hour, But we're talking life here as what we saw in the last episode, And, whenever I see you, I see sort of myself, 10 years back, maybe a bit younger. I started off a bit late, you started a bit younger, but we'll dwell on that later as we talk more.
Yep, 100%, brother. Couldn't have said it better myself. So we'll just jump straight into it because that's how I just normally do things. So I guess tell me a little bit about yourself and just sort of dive on, I guess, where you grew up and how your friend circle or who were your friend circle.
Yeah. Look, my life has been a slightly different story. Like, I'm one of the Diplo brat kids. My dad was in the Indian High Commission, and he obviously got posted around the world. Initially, I was born in Saudi Arabia, moved to Sudan, where I started off at an American school in a kindergarten. So I got an American exposure early in my life, basketball, ice hockey, all those jigs. Then moved back to India, then went to Switzerland. It was a big jump. It was Switzerland. Then I went to a British school, so I got exposed to British culture. Then I moved back to India again. So obviously was exposed to Indian education system. So both, worldwide and sort of the Indian education system. And then my dad got posted to Afghanistan. So that meant that I did I did a good 4 years from year 8 to year 11 in India. So the education system back in India was very tough during that period. Then I moved here with my family in Canberra in 2010. And just sort of stayed back and just got sort of exposed to Australian culture. And I would say that I'm a very adaptable person. So as you know, since a very young age, I've been exposed to lots of different people from different demographics, age group and all. So I would happily interact with, an Indian or a Nigerian or a French equally to how I would treat a normal Aussie, because I'm an Aussie citizen now. And fair to say that even I've got no sort of different attitude towards an 80-year-old man to a 10-year-old kid. I would happily go along with the vibe,
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on a couple of things there, brother. One thing is you've travelled a lot, especially I guess, in your younger years as well, which is a great journey. Yeah. I haven't. I've always been in Canberra since I was a little kid, which it is what it is. It's a little bit boring sometimes, not gonna lie. But I think that aspect of how you were travelling so much at a young age really resonated with the personality and the person who you are today. Yeah. So one thing that I would imagine is because you were travelling so much, your friends group would have shifted a lot of the times. Yeah. So you never really knew which place to call home, right?
Absolutely. There's a very interesting topic that you touched, when you say friends, I never had a friend you say, like a best friend, since you meet at year 1, end up at year 12, I never had that sort of experience. But I'm fortunate enough to sort of get different friends and close friends that I'm still in touch with, even today. Obviously Sudan was a very young we were very kids, and then when I went back to India back in 2006 out of Switzerland, that's actually no, in 2003 in that Switzerland period, I had friends, and then Facebook came in obviously a few years later. Then got back in touch with them again. Still in touch with a couple of them. One's from Sweden, one's from I think Geneva, I think. Do talk to them often, and so my sort of friends still started sort of growing when I went back to India, because I was at year 8. And in year 8 is where you do all the mischief and all those naughty stuff, which creates a good bond. So I'm close to one of my good friends, Shalin. He's from Delhi, and then obviously in Canberra, I've stayed. My longest ever in my life is 13 years straight. I've lived in one country, one city, So I've got few friends over here. But one food of thought, initially I had massive collection of friends, but then over the time you find very few are the ones that are diamonds.
They're the real. They're the
real ones.
That's right. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So that's exactly right, man. And I've certainly, as I said in the first episode, I called myself a drifter, right?
I'm still drifting.
Yeah, drifting through different friend circles, and you're right. The handful of people that stick with you at the end are really your closest brothers, right?
Yeah. And sisters.
And sisters, obviously. Great thing you pointed that out, 100%. And the sisters out there. So, moving on from that, I understand that you're quite a spiritual person as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that really resonated with me because, like the first guest I had, I really found how diving into, and I'm Hindu as well, and so are you, diving into the spiritual side of our religion has really taught me to be really grounded with what we have. And also when things are going really bad and times are being really tough, how to navigate that is through connecting to God, and also through saying some mantras that you've learned when you were younger, and that you learn through the scripture books as well. So my question to you is, how has religion played a part in your life?
To be honest, when you talk about religion, spirituality, if you ask my friends and peers or through my Insta stories that you keep on viewing, I'm trying to enjoy every festival. I am Hindu by birth, got no choice, I landed in a Hindu family. I was born in a Muslim country, back in Riyadh. But I enjoy festivals. I don't know every single mantra that's been said in our Gita, but each Thursday, each Thursday, today's a beautiful day, Thursday. After this podcast, as I told you, I'll be going to the temple. So I do go to the temple almost every Thursday or a Tuesday or whenever a festival's on. Just pray to God, just praying for welfare of myself, my family, and obviously to my close ones. I don't know what it is, but you just get that. I think it's just a mental feeling. You just get that strength by doing that, and I feel like you can achieve lots of things just by going and just sitting there for 5 minutes, and you will gain a lot of strength and achieve the goals that you're after, that you're looking forward to, basically. And dwelling on the topic of sort of festivals, I don't differentiate any festival. As you can see, I'm Hindu, but I've got a kara on my hands. Because I was very young, when I was very little, and then I was roaming around in Delhi, every second person was a Punjabi there wearing a kara. And then when I was very young, I told my mom that I want that fashion style, And my mom didn't, and thankfully my mom didn't. My parents are sort of a bit liberal on that side. So they bought me a kara at a very young age. I've been wearing this for a good part of, I think, 17 years, and not knowing the fact that it's a part of a Sikh culture, and I still don't feel I'm any different, I still go to the Gurdwara every now and then, pray to Guru Nanak Ji and get all my wishes done. So that's festival and that's religion for me. Just go, enjoy, and make new friends.
100%. And you touched on a lot of aspects there, man, especially in relation to how you're very open to exploring other religions, in terms that you will, not necessarily believe in what they're saying, but adopt their culture a little bit. Sikhism and Hinduism are quite interrelated, right? In fact, I believe Sikhism was actually originated from Hinduism through Guru Nanak Dev Ji, because he was a Hindu at the time and obviously converted to Sikh. And the same thing with Buddhism as well, right? So I think we're pretty blessed in the sense that I recently have connected a lot with with Hanumanji. That's just the god that I always believe. And obviously Shiva, Matarani, and all these other gods are there as well.
Yep.
But one thing that I've realized is when I read the Hanuman Chalisa, like I don't do it every day, but like I'd say every second or third day, it just gives me that strength. And I don't know what it is, man. Like, because there was an example where I was, it was just a normal day. I read it in the morning. And then two things I just really was waiting for in my life to happen. Like there were two phone calls that I just needed to I just needed that to happen. And I wasn't expecting it at all to happen on the same day.
Yep.
One was, a couple of weeks later, but it was just an anxious time for me. Like I just needed these two things to happen.
Yep.
And then it was I went to go get my morning coffee, and then one phone call came. It was about one of the matters. It got sorted out. And then the other phone call came about half an hour later.
Yep.
And it was like, yep, that matter's all sorted out as well.
Look, I'm just going to touch on that basis, again, like you read those Hanuman Chalisa in the morning. If you haven't done, you could have probably gotten the phone calls. But because you read that, your mind sort of went in a bit of a relaxation mode. You're like, God's looking after me,
That's right. Yeah.
So it plays well, not only mentally, but physically. You had a good coffee, you had a good snack, because Hanumanji is looking after you and got 2 phone calls.
That's right, yeah.
It's good fun when you have religion around. And just touching slightly on that religion topic, it's very controversial when you talk, like, I wouldn't say these days, but some parts of the world is very controversial. But these days we have got the advent of, iPhones, Instagram, Reels and all, And when you see those quotes from different religions, when you flip them up, you get those different aspects of, Allah, Sikhism or, Hinduism.
Yeah.
You get that, you feel better, when you at like 10 o'clock at night after dinner, when you go going past his Reels, after like in a Hrithik Roshan reel, you see this God reel. So it does feel good sometimes to have one of these come up,
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, in no shape or way are we trying to like preach, believe in God, believe in God. It's just, again, sharing our experiences and also, just things that we've gone through to make us a better human, right? And yeah, I think that, when I look back at, we can keep talking about religion, but I think, it can get boring sometimes. But one of the other critical things that I've learned is that, I was listening this, not podcast, but like just this video, and it was a guru in India, and he was just talking about when things are going bad, just follow these 3 core things. The first one is always expect problems along the way of life. Like nothing's perfect, which we all know is pretty cliche. Yeah. The other second critical thing is other people will dream to be in the shoes or in the position that you are. Yeah. So if you think you're going through a tough time, do you have food? Do you have a shelter? Do you have all these basic human things that we need, which we all do, right? I'm sure, in our friend circle, like no one's really, I guess, homeless or doesn't have a shelter. If you put yourself in a person's shoe who doesn't have any of those, like, for example, not having a job for the time being is nothing compared to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I look back at that and I think that, it's very resonating for me that things don't always go the way you want them to, but it's important just to trust yourself and be yourself. And then with time, man, things sort of
themselves. Just touching on that very topic, about what you just spoke about. Obviously, I want to take this one named Gaur Gopal Das. He's a very good spiritual sort of person. On Instagram, he is very active, puts his quotes and all. So it's very, he's sort of a guru guy, but, his quotes are really, really helpful when you read them. But just touching base off, how blessed we are in life, there was this time, I did my master's and all, and just for completed in 2018 and then became a resident in 2019. I couldn't land a job till 2020 October. That 1.5 year period of not sort of getting a job. And when I see people who are who didn't achieve a lot in uni in terms of grades wise, they're getting jobs and all. I don't know how. I blessed them well and all, but that time was very tough. I was rugging it out of cold. Finishing up at 11 o'clock, going upstairs, writing selection criteria, cover letters, networking with people, going out.
Sure.
But each night when I came back, this was one night I came back and I sat on my couch. I just told myself, I had my clothes, it was all dirty and everything was dirty and all, But at the end of the day, what I felt was Look, at the end of the day, I'm healthy. I'm earning dollars, which
That's
is
right.
paying off my groceries,
Cost of
helping
living.
my family in any ways possible. And I'm healthy. I'm going to the gym, doing comps and stuff like that. So I shouldn't be really complaining. Like, there are a few people around the world who can't even earn a 4 square meal. When I say 4 square meal,
100%.
like even a piece of bread.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and now we'll move on to the next topic, and you touched on it yourself, but your background, I guess, so what you studied at uni.
Yeah.
So what did you study at university, and like how has that influenced to where you are now?
It's I find uni a very greyish topic, although I've attained my bachelor's in commerce and master's in professional accounting both from UC, University of Canberra. But I guess uni has taught me a lot of, like being a better human being, moving forward, which I learned a bit later. Like, back in uni days, I thought my life was I wouldn't take any wrong words, but it was like I thought it was bad, boring, like But at the same time, I went out partying and all that thing. So I was a pretty rough load back in 10 years ago.
Really? Yeah, okay. I wouldn't have picked that from you, man. So.
And I'm going to Mooses on a nice drink or puking on the road. So there was one night. But again, you grow up from these things.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
once I finished uni, and then I got a job at an accounting firm and all. Like I saw the difference, especially when I went into the corporate culture. Like there was a difference between how I talk, how I write compared to someone who. I'm not degrading any sort of certificates, but getting a degree of your own hard work does sort of like brushes. You know how the diamond, when it's like a full rock, you need to hit it and make it into a diamond. I don't know. I was a diamond till I went into that world. So I think uni does play a key role, but at the end of the day, what you have to learn is just be a good human being. Just be a good team member. Skills can be taught to you.
That's right.
So these days, we are fortunate to live in a country like Australia where you can get an arts degree but end up being in a field of cyber, just doing a few certifications.
100%.
If you've got the willpower, skills can be taught to you.
That's right.
You just need to work hard.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. I think what you touched on is very critical because from my experience with uni is, as you know, like I'm working in a completely different field to what I studied, right? Like I did a Bachelor of Commerce, majors in finance, now I'm working in cybersecurity, right? Yeah. So one thing that uni taught me, which quite aligns with you, is that you get rewarded for your hard work, right? But I would disagree where you're saying, like, I guess uni teaches you to be a better person, because in my view, I think life teaches you to be a better person.
Yeah.
No, and uni does to a degree, I guess, when you go to the job, how to communicate, how to write, which are critical elements. Yeah. But I think being a good human is sort of taught from your upbringing on who raised you. So obviously, your parents, if you had a good family, I think that's such a blessing as well. And we're lucky where, both of our parents, they always loved us, and they've always cared for us. But I know many of my friends, certainly, they didn't, they had, I hate to use the word broken families, but they had, parents where they didn't really support them at a young age. Yeah. And that can really affect, someone's behavior as they get older. And more often than not, what's interesting, man, is like one person that I do know who, unfortunately didn't have a great upbringing. He's one of the most, successful, call it, hardworking people that I know now. And I think the reason was because he was taught at such a young age that he needed to be independent. He didn't have that, I guess, closure, if you want to call it, like we did from our parents, or like that sort of safety net. But quite at a young age, he was taught to fend for himself, to get the groceries or just to pay the bills at a young age. Yeah. And I think that's a sort of a detriment to our culture as well, a little bit. Like obviously, in our culture, we have that, call it stereotype, call it call it tradition or whatever, where our parents would always do everything for their sons or their daughters because they want them to grow up really, really well and really successful and, do all that, which I think that's potentially a flaw. I'm quite lucky, I guess, when my parents were quite liberal. Like we weren't like super rich or anything like that. We came from very, humble beginnings, man. I'll be honest with you. So I was born in New Zealand, but we sort of grew up in social housing. And then obviously, like any sort of immigrant, right, we moved here for better opportunities, and with time, things, I guess, just sort of fell the way that they have, which I'm really grateful for. But what my point is saying, and feel free to add on it, is that sometimes I think kids need to be, or not kids, but I think in our younger years we do need to be taught that level of independence to fend for ourselves.
Absolutely. I learned my independence at a very late sort of stage, and I had the safety net of my parents and all, and then my brother and all, but then that sort of came out of it as I started earning sort of good money and then owning a property now. But I guess being independent is a good thing, But I've been taught in a very sort of very slow-ish way. I remember my first purchase from a grocery store was a bar of chocolate in Switzerland. My mom gave me this money, and I was exact Swiss franc amount which we gave to the shop. And then I got a chocolate and came home. But I guess the thing is you just need to earn that trust, with your parents, so that you can run independently. But again, what do you learn from your parents or from your social group around where you interact? That plays a key role. Just touching, that relationship aspect, back up, if you ask me, I don't know, about 7-8 years ago, for me, it was, for me, marriage was more you just date a girl, marry, and you just live a life.
Sure.
But it's not that case. I learned in lately, it's not just simple as that. You got to look at the girl, make sure she interacts with the family well, I interact with the family well.
Sure.
And then it's a lot to play. It's not just me and her. It's more family as well. So obviously the main point is me and her. But then there will be times where families will come together and interact. So you've got to make sure that is pretty smooth, open communications and all. And these things I didn't learn just like that. I learned it from from my friends that got married or were dating and all. I did take a pause of dating and for a while because I was focusing on my life and my career, but I kept my eyes open. Where can I improve myself? That's whether through my parents or whether through my extended family or through my friends. And now where I'm at, it's because of the people that I've learned from.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. And I feel like you're running this podcast now, man, because that was what I was going to touch on later. Relationships. So yeah, I think that's a very important aspect of where in the dating life as well. I guess families do need to come together, and especially in those sort of functions, it would be a lot easier for a married life, I guess, if both the families on the guys and the girls side blend in together. Yeah. But on the contrary, I feel like, especially these days, it's more about you and the person that you're dating or that you're going to marry. I do get your point where you're saying it's very important and I guess what you're referring to is having someone from the same culture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does make, I guess, life a lot easier. But I think my sort of 2 cents with that is that for me, it's if I guess I haven't dated that many girls in the past. Only one proper relationship. Proper. I mean, it was probably for 6 to 8 months, I think. It wasn't. Yeah. Anyway, so and I think one thing I learned from that experience was having someone, I guess, from the same culture does really help, just in general. And it's pretty funny because I guess you could call her my ex-girlfriend or whatever, but we're still sort of friends outside of outside of the breakup or whatever. Because the thing with me is I always want to leave with a good impression and a good sort of relationship with anyone that I sort of interact with. It's good. I'm seeing someone now, and that's going pretty well. I think it's just sort of taking it day by day. But yeah, referring to your earlier point, I think that it's really important to focus on yourself first. The old cliche saying. And I feel like we could talk about it for ages. I feel like we never really know ourselves until until we do, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I only think you will 100% know yourself when you're spiritually connected with who you are. And I think that takes time, right?
Yeah.
So, like my mum, for example, she's really into spirituality and yoga. She went to Rishikesh for a bit as well. And some of the stories she was telling me, just, you know, from meditating and doing the yoga, I was like, I never really thought India to be like that. And then I was like, as soon as she finished that story, I was like, I want to go there and do this retreat. And I really want to see what will happen, whether I'll cry, whether I'll get angry, whatever. Because I'm sure I'm going to be facing a lot of, you know, personal demons as well. But that's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
I
mean, just touching on that, you know, that relationship aspect, you know, like I was in a relationship for a bit, but then the same, you know, same spirituality, same place and everything, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Just didn't work out. But like, I mean, I don't know about you. You've been here since a very young age, you know, in Australia, born in New Zealand, so you've been part of this Western side, and you know, most likely you might find a girl in Australia. I wouldn't say Canberra, but I would just say Australia. But for me, it becomes slightly more complex. You know, like my parents are like in India. So obviously, gonna find a Bengali girl, and you know, like if I'm like I'm talking to someone, but then if I am marrying her, you know, I'm gonna make sure it's secure.
Yeah.
I'm secure here first. Like I want to make sure we set the foot right.
Yeah.
There will be challenges along the way.
100%.
But I've got to make sure that the base is there, you know.
100%.
Go up, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting, man. I think that's a great point. And where you touch on, I guess, you know, meeting a girl or finding a girl from the same culture. Because I think when, you know, the old saying, when things get real, or shit gets real, you're not thinking about one person, you're thinking about two people, right? and that's a very, I don't know, it's a pretty scary thought, like, in my mind, because, like, I feel like I'm not at where I want to be 100%, but I also feel that I'll never be at that level if I sort of keep chasing or whatever. Yeah. So that's why spiritually I'm really trying to connect with, I guess, who I am, and, like, diving back to the Hanuman Chalisa and just really understanding Hinduism and the religion. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's great, man, and I think we'll sort of conclude there. Yeah. It was a great chance to talk to you, brother, and it was a great, you know, podcast sharing with you. We talked about life, we talked about, you know, relationships, jobs, what you studied in the past to what you are now. Yeah. Spirituality, which was a great conversation. That was probably 70% of this episode.
Definitely worth it, though, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Having a bit of fun in every culture, you know.
That's right, 100%. So I really appreciate your time, Surojit. And this is a podcast driven by Surojit. Thanks, everyone.
Pleasure.